Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we rewatched Terror of the Autons. What was that about?
Well, the first arrival of the Master.
Yep.
But also another Time Lord who came in to warn the Doctor that he was on his way or something like that.
Yeah.
But he creates a new group of Autons, and they are. I mean, it seemed to be a pretty simple sort of thing. Not a whole lot actually went on. Of course, we commented on the fact that the biggest thing was the absence of Liz, who apparently has gone back to her university, and now we have Jo Grant. And again, it's kind of a mishmash. Interesting episode, but again, we had already seen it, so it ends up with the Autons being defeated, of course.
Yeah. Although the thing we realized on our rewatch is that the Master is stuck on Earth, which we didn't really put too much thought in that the first time because we weren't watching through the series.
Now, the Doctor disabled his dematerialization circuit or something like that.
Yeah, I think he took it from his TARDIS. He was trying to put it into. The Doctor was trying to put it into his TARDIS, but they were different models, so they weren't compatible. But as long as he has it, the Master is stuck there too. Yeah. So, also, last time around, we watched Mummy on the Orient Express. So if you haven't seen that reaction, you can go ahead and maybe if I think ahead, I'll put in like there's a feature called the iCard. Maybe it'll be like up here. There'll be like a banner that pops up. If there's not, it's because I forgot.
Don't forget.
I'll forget. But
I forgot to put in the Teddy Roosevelt picture.
I did. So
after I sent it to you.
Yes, I did.
They say I have short-term memory problems.
Well, you do have short-term memory problems, but the biggest thing is you have short-term memory problems. But anyway, yeah, if you haven't seen that reaction, go watch it. A bit on the quieter side of our reactions.
Yes.
But we're trying to figure everything out. And even me watching it again, I've watched it within the past year or so, and I was still trying to figure out everything.
Yeah. Again, we thought it was very interesting, but I think, and somebody even said in the comments, that the New Who format of doing essentially one story in a 45 to 60 minute episode doesn't really give you a chance at real depth when it comes to a storyline. So,
it depends.
It turns out, there was an Egyptian soldier who had, been alive for at least, 3,000-4,000 years, and the Doctor managed to release him from his whatever his task was, and then he disappeared. But again, we were talking about the fact that there was no explanation as to why he had lived that long. He wasn't like the Pharaoh's bodyguard or something, or he was somebody who had a purpose for being there and for taking the lives of other people. Anyway, enjoyable overall. I mean, I really enjoyed Peter Capaldi. Looking forward to seeing more of that. But overall, it was like just a middling story.
Yeah.
But good performances and good special effects.
And it's definitely a difference of, when we do Classic Who, every 24 minutes we stop, we talk a little bit, and sometimes we, stretch a story over 2 weeks. Case in point, we're going to be doing that today, by the way.
Oh, is this more than 4-parter?
This is 6 parts. So we'll be doing 3 today, 3 next week.
Okay.
But yeah, with new Doctor Who, it's a continuous 45 minutes, and there's no commercial break or anything either, so... but yeah, and we will be doing another modern Doctor Who reaction in season 9 when we rewatch Curse of Peladon. We'll be watching a 13th Doctor episode, which is called Demons of the Punjab. So
of course it is.
Yeah, exactly. That one, to its credit, is historical, unlike the almost falsely advertised Mummy on the Orient Express.
Yes, the Orient Express in space.
Yes. So.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anywho, but today we're watching The Mind of Evil. And like I said, 6 parts. We're doing 3 today, 3 next week. So, we have no idea what this one's about. Nothing that we can gleam from the title, The Mind of Evil. That's a very vague expression, but yeah, maybe it'll have the Master, maybe it won't have the Master. I guess it could. I don't know. Anything else?
I got nothing.
Then let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go. That's the guy that wrote Inferno.
Oh.
I actually remembered this time.
Abandon hope, or ye who enter here.
Prison Stanmore. Wonder if that's out in the West Country. Anything with more on it usually is. Looks like an execution. I didn't think Great Britain had capital punishment. Colors don't really go together.
Nope.
The maroon and purple are about to clash violently.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
May I introduce Professor Kettering, who will explain the process you're about to see demonstrated.
He will be our mad scientist for the episode.
Now this machine, the Keller machine, extracts these impulses and leaves a rational, well-balanced individual.
It doesn't.
What? The machine has been used very successfully in Switzerland. 112 cases have been processed to date, and today we shall witness the 113th. Thank you, Dr. Summers.
Come on, okay.
Well, it's not execution.
Mind wiping.
Well,
He did tell you all about it, Doctor.
All about what?
Today's the first ever World Peace Conference. Units handling all the security arrangements.
Yes, that's all very well, sir, but in my opinion... Yes, I see, sir.
you know, a World Peace Conference. I don't know how well it's going to go down.
Important state documents have been stolen from General Chengdek's suite.
That's impossible. There's a 24-hour guard on all the delegate suites.
Nevertheless, the theft has occurred. Your guards are inefficient. Perhaps they take bribes.
More trouble.
Hey, she's quite a dolly.
Oh, totally sexist of you, Yates.
Ugh. You know, this is another one of those immediately, like, this should be 2 stories, but for some reason it's 1. Quite the flame on that lighter.
Those are those old Zippos that are a lot different from the butane lighters of today. Yeah, drop it into a can where there's all those dry leaves around.
Interfering with the mind, Governor. It's a dangerous business.
Well, it's hardly your concern, is it?
Professor Kettering, it is everyone's concern.
Dr. Summers.
You know who interferes with the mind? The Master.
Well,
Yet all the indications are that he was attacked by a horde of them, and the shock killed him.
you must be mistaken.
But Linwood is dead.
Because of heart failure.
No, Professor Kettering, because of this machine.
I tell you, that man's death had nothing to do with this machine. And if you were a scientist, you'd understand.
If I were a scientist,
Oof.
let me tell you so that I am a scientist. And I have been for several thousand...
months. I mean, I'm not sure what connects a horde of rats to the machine.
If they extract the negative thoughts, perhaps the thoughts made the young kid think he was seeing rats.
Oh, maybe.
He's afraid of water. He's been drowned
Yeah.
in a dry prison.
Nah. So I guess he's not the mad scientist of the episode.
A rather attractive Chinese girl.
The plot thickens.
Maybe they're going to use the negative thoughts at the specific World Peace Conference. We should take bets on if Keller is the master or not.
Immediately.
Kettering's lungs were full of water. He drowned in the middle of a perfectly dry room.
Okay.
I know he's going to regenerate. It's his eyes again. He's got-
Just that brief little...
It's the... They covered most of that up. Also, the Doctor's greatest fear is fire. That we learned something about him, I guess. Huh. I mean, I don't know how every doctor regenerated. I'm going to assume none of them burned to death. So, I wonder if you could make that to where it's like, well, yeah, if your body burns, you can't regenerate. So that would be his greatest fear.
I don't remember him being particularly afraid of fire when Rome burned as the first Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's... I don't know, I guess he hasn't been... Well, no, I guess Nero did put that fire really close to him, so, yeah. I mean, obviously, this is something they just thought of now. Yeah. They haven't been thinking about this for 8 seasons, but yeah, very interesting. I mean, I guess we don't fully know that it's specifically fears. I mean, drowning someone, yeah, that'll probably kill them, so you can work with that. Rats was very specific. Fire, yeah, fire will probably kill you, so...
It seems to be psychosomatic, though, because we know that there was no water and no rats in the laboratory, so it's literally the manifestation of these symptoms breaking out into real things. You know, so the guy either scratched himself or it basically his mind caused his body to do that, just like the other doctor's lungs filled up with water.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad immediately there's a connection between the two plot lines, because they are very separate of, like, yes, the Brigadier is at a peace conference and things are, happening there, and the Doctor, he's at a prison with this machine that can take away the bad thoughts and stuff. Like, okay, you're gonna connect these somehow, otherwise... I mean, I don't think the Brigadier's just off on his own side plot for no reason, but there's got to be something to connect them, and it seems to be General Chin Lee who's connecting these two. And I know pretty much throughout the entire episode I kept saying, oh, maybe it's the Master. It's entirely possible it's not, that he'll come back later in the season. But, I mean, after the setup we had last episode, it would make sense if they did that, if he's now more in the shadows setting up different things, and then they start. So, but definitely an interesting episode, with an interesting setting. So,
I wonder if there's really a Stangmore prison.
Maybe. I mean, because I guess that the only location shot was outside the castle. So maybe, although I'm sure you can easily find a castle and just put a sign on it. That was actually the thing on the Grand Tour when they were taking a road trip around Scotland, but it was during lockdown and everything, and so they said, well, we can't go to hotels because of COVID, and they said, why don't we stay at a castle? There's 1 million castles in Scotland, and no one's there because you can't go to your second home, and a castle is always a second home, so they just went to a castle and just stayed the night, ate their food, and left. So I'm sure it was easy to find whatever castle this is.
Pick up a chair and bash the thing.
Yeah.
Fire?
But why should you?
Well, some time ago, Joe, I witnessed a terrible catastrophe. A whole world just disappeared in flames.
Do you think he's talking about Rome or something else?
Our minds
I don't know where else he would have gone that we wouldn't have seen.
A planet, he said.
Well.
Just blow it up. Destroy it.
Because those idiots in authority won't let me, that's why.
Nobody's there right now, Doctor. Pick up a chair and whack it.
So
if you've quite finished asking questions...
If you get arrested, the Brigadier will bail you out.
For once in your young life, do you think you could do exactly as I ask?
Yes, of course.
Now, but go and see the governor. Tell him to lock and bar that door. No one is to enter this room, no one. Do you understand?
Just leave everything to me.
You could also try unplugging the machine. I mean, maybe it's so advanced that it has a battery, but still.
Cornwall Gardens.
Oh, it's Benton. Good to see he still does stuff. Good to see he still did stuff. Thank goodness the circus is here.
First outdoor we've ever seen with no rain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the second time we've seen this guy, so he's obviously up to no good.
Wow.
As I was saying,
Oh, there he is. He always pops up when you least expect him.
Yes, I'll ring you through the route as soon as it's finalized.
This tent is the back end of the phone company truck. That's very common from this time period.
I love that this is the second time he's done something with telephones.
We are going to see the new Chinese delegate, Mr. Fu Peng.
Fu Peng? He must be Hokkien.
No, Doctor, he's Chinese. Now, come along.
Come on, man.
And this is our scientific advisor.
What? Hokkien Lu? Luwari Kok Tai.
It is rare to meet a Westerner who knows my language.
Well, thank you. Actually, I fear my Hokkien is somewhat rusty.
On the contrary, it is excellent.
I think it's rare for a show in the 70s to have a different language. That's impressive.
I remember once having a conversation with Zedong.
Zedong? That is the personal name of our chairman, Mao Zedong.
He himself gave me leave to use it.
I think Mao was still alive at 71.
Of course, there are the theories that this technically takes place in the 80s. I'm just going to say it's 1971 and call it there.
Yeah. Because I want to say Mao died in the mid to late 70s, but again, don't quote me on that. It's been 45 years.
Nah.
Well, where's this grub then? You planning to starve me to death?
It's coming, mate.
It's coming. Yeah, so is Christmas.
Why do they have to guard him in a cell? You already have a cell.
My apologies.
I wonder if the master is Emil Keller.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because it does seem like a machine he would create.
Good. Now you may go.
You know, it's interesting. He doesn't even do anything for hypnosis except look at them.
Yeah.
All right, but make it short, will you?
Not a bad American accent.
Nah.
What are you doing?
You think he is British, though? He's afraid of dragons?
What it looked like.
I guess. I mean...
Now, hang on. I wanted to see... Barnum. Barnum looked very familiar. You know, he's one of those guys that's got one of those villainous faces, but that's not a name I recognize.
Well, it is the master, so there is at least that. We do have the speculation that he could be Emil Keller, so... Oh, excuse me. It really does seem, especially because it's all about the mind and everything, and that is sort of what he specializes in. Well, that and telephones, apparently. So, it's definitely, like... last episode was definitely a good introduction to the Master. It's like, this definitely feels more like a bigger sort of Master story, you know? And yeah, just tying in... So far, so good on tying in the prison story with the World Peace Conference. So, yeah.
And he does really look like some of those Southern American senators from the 60s and 70s.
Well, he may be an American actor, for all we know.
All right, but make it short, will you?
I mean, they actually sprang for Chinese actors and Chinese dialect, so...
She was the dragon? What the heck?
I mean, maybe it was just the illusion.
Monsters of my people. A collected hallucination, gentlemen, nothing more.
Okay. We were all just hallucinating at the same time. I definitely, though, thought she turned into a dragon for a second.
May God go with you also.
Communist China was officially non-religious, atheist.
Shouldn't they listen to me? You hear me?
Maybe it's an in-joke for the Doctor.
You're getting out of here.
At last you've seen some sense.
Not you, darling. Now you're gonna
I thought she was a unit
safe conduct
person
out of
who
here for me
had all
and
the
all of my
karate moves and
I'm not
everything.
leaving here without Miss Grant.
Yes, you are.
I mean, yeah, but after the last few episodes, unit people aren't that impressive.
What's going on, Sergeant? That missile should have been off the pad 10 minutes ago.
I'm sorry, sir, but we're having trouble with the crane.
No excuses, Sergeant. Just get on with it.
Right, sir.
Look, it's difficult to move a matte painting like this.
Yes, but where did you first meet this man?
It would have been hilarious if his driver ran that guy over just because he's evil like that.
Prison reform is high on our list of priorities in Peking.
Oh. And can you tell us what happened at Stagmore?
In the 1980s, the Associated Press and UPI and all the rest decided to change the westernized spellings and pronunciations, so Peking, which was the name of their capital, became Beijing.
Post-hypnotic block. His usual technique.
And Mao Zedong became Mao Zedong.
Man. Who else would make a deliberate attempt to plunge this world into war? Using equipment and techniques not even developed on Earth. Like this.
The Master?
Otherwise known as Emil Keller.
I mean, I don't blame the Brigadier for not thinking of the Master. He showed up once.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen Dr. Summers?
Yeah. Get him out of there. He gives me the creeps. Come on, mate.
Oh, good shot, Joe. Well, that was very impressive of Joe.
Yes. Yes, I thought as much. Well, let me tell you this, that if you harm so much as one hair of her head, I'll...
You'll do nothing, or I'll put a bullet through both your hearts.
Well, it's a lunatic scheme. Still, that's only to be expected.
Oh, come, Doctor, how can I possibly fail? I launch the missile, wipe out the peace conference. The world is at war.
You missed.
As we found out in our production of Gaslight, handcuffs don't usually do it that quickly.
I really would like to stop and watch your nightmares.
Then why don't you?
I have other business, as you know. Will you excuse me?
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond. I expect you to die.
I mean, we've really gone 10,000% into the James Bond era of Doctor Who.
Yeah. But if it extracts negative impulses, the Doctor doesn't have a whole lot of negative impulses. Close your eyes. Come on, close your eyes.
Every time. Alright, well, that's the first 3 parts.
So interesting, though, that he goes back to the Daleks, but still don't quite understand the fire and watched a planet explode or consumed in fire. Because I think he said, I saw a planet consumed in fire.
Unless he's talking about Skaro, specifically. Because that's the last time we saw the Daleks was when Skaro was pretty much destroyed with all the Daleks.
Was that
Maybe
with the Emperor Dalek?
Yeah. Maybe that's what he's referring to. So perhaps that's his greatest fear, is seeing another planet fall to ruin like that. So
I guess we'll find out sometime next week.
Yeah, I guess so. It does feel weird only doing 3 of these. So, but yeah, that is the beginning of The Mind of Evil. Pretty solid so far.
Yeah.
So, I suppose, it's not quite a mystery as, pretty much episode 2, you get the Master, and you start to immediately realize, like, okay, so to connect these 2 things, like, well, this thing, it kills people and, brings out their fears and stuff like that, and here we have a World Peace Conference. Okay, I can see how those two things would go together and collapse and wouldn't collide very well.
Now, there's a third minor plot here, which we've only seen the hint at, which is he's going to try to steal the nuclear missile, the Thunderbolt, and launch it against the Chinese or the Soviets or something.
Well, he said he was going to destroy the peace conference itself, so presumably he's going to detonate it in the heart of London, basically. So, which, I mean, that is a very interesting move, because, he says, that'll plunge the world into war, and it's like, well, it depends on who's being blamed for this, because I don't think you can blame the British for blowing up a nuke in their own country to kill all these delegates. That seems a bit much, a little bit too much for that plan to work. So
it would seem like they would have to launch it because the British were in NATO. They'd have to launch it either against the Soviet Union, against Moscow, or against Beijing, or one of the Warsaw Pact capitals at this time. Yeah, to detonate it in London would simply look like an accident, that they had accidentally blown themselves up. But even if they had killed all the delegates, that would not plunge the world into war. So apparently we're missing something that we'll get in the next 3 episodes.
Unless it's detonated in London and blame it on the Chinese. It could be that specifically.
Yeah.
It all just depends on who is going to be blamed for it. If it is just an accident, then that's just a horrific, tragic accident, but still an accident. That wouldn't launch the world into this war. So, all right. Well, to go into the notes, we start off in the Stagmore prison, which is interesting. And yeah, just the whole thing of just combining these two plot lines is very interesting. Again, we pointed out this is the guy that wrote Inferno, which also kind of had two plot lines. You've got this whole thing about the drilling and the possible, planet blowing up, and also a parallel Earth. So that's pretty interesting. Seems to be a consistent thing with him. Although I thought someone said it was specifically they added the parallel story later, that wasn't the original intention. They didn't think just the Inferno would fill 7 episodes, so they added in the parallel world, I think.
And that was the best part of it, strangely enough.
Yeah.
Otherwise it was just another base under siege, as we keep saying. But
base under siege, there's a goo, so
there's blue werewolves.
We won't get into that. For the love of God, let's not get into that. So
now, you were speculating that because the Master had been left here on Earth, that he would reappear. I didn't expect him to reappear this suddenly. I mean, honestly, to finally figure out, hey, wait a minute, that is him, and he is Keller. It's like he's been very busy, because how much time has elapsed between Terror of the Autons and this story that he has managed to somehow invent this machine in Switzerland, get it to Great Britain, hire the driver. I'm sure that because of his powers, he's going to accumulate great wealth. But still, that it seems to basically set up that there has to have been a substantial amount of time between the end of Terror of the Autons and the beginning of this story.
Yeah, because they said he invented it, and it's been used on 115 people, and now they're bringing it over to the UK.
Yeah.
So unless, I suppose it's entirely possible that maybe he's had 5 different plans going at the same time. He's just been very busy with all of that. So as soon as the whole plan with the Autons failed, he went over to plan B. Maybe this entire season is just plan A, plan B, plan C, just each of his plans failing in succession.
But again, we talked about the fact that this is the James Bond villain, whether it's Goldfinger or Blofeld or Largo or some of these others. But again, I keep going back to this is Holmes and Moriarty.
Yeah.
Because Moriarty did have multiple schemes going at the same time. Conan Doyle describes him as being at the center of a web of crime, and that he's able to do all of these different things because he's at the center and he's not out on the fringes actually doing the work.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if it's like, if just a lot of time has passed. I suppose it's also possible that he made up the whole thing. I mean, obviously, you know, because he made up this whole persona of Emil Keller. I suppose it's possible he just tricked them into thinking that it has been used in Switzerland and stuff. Like, you know, maybe he's just showed up with enough to convince them that he's been doing this. So,
yeah,
I don't know. But I mean, it has to have been enough time to create this very specific device, to put it in this prison, and then to go to something completely different, which is this upcoming peace conference, then hypnotize Chin Lee, and you're right, get the driver and everything, and come up with this whole thing in order to get this missile to plunge the world into war, which, again, like last episode, it's like, this is a very complicated, inefficient plan, which is exactly the Master's MO.
Yeah.
So
and I'm not exactly sure what he's doing with the prison people, you know?
Yeah. Like, it kind of makes you think, like, well, okay, if you have this machine and you can just use it on different people, what is the purpose of the prison storyline? Like, you could have just had this machine is at the peace conference, and you could have kept all the focus on the peace conference. Not that the stuff in the prison is bad, but when you really start to think about it, it's like, well, the prison is only there just to have the machine.
And I was thinking, because of the rather, he's not, you know, overly large, you know, like Toberman or some of the others, but Barnum, the first guy that they tried it on, he seemed to be a very large, muscular kind of guy. So my original thought was they're somehow going to turn him into some kind of, you know, superhuman wrecking machine type, you know, villain. But instead, they've done just the opposite. They've made him into, like they said, a saint, because there's literally no bad impulses in him. So it makes me wonder, is he going to come back at the end and be somewhat of the, you know, savior of this story? Because he will probably figure out how to sacrifice himself in order to save everybody else.
Maybe. Yeah, because, I mean,
they've set him up very, very large in this, and I can't figure out any other reason why they would do that.
Because, I mean, the machine worked.
Yeah.
Like, it did actually do what it was supposed to do, which is take out all the negative impulses. It's just that now it's also being used to instill these fears into people in order to kill them. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a very strange sort of, I don't want to say tangent. I don't want to say tangent because it's where the episode starts, you know? Yeah. Technically, the peace conference is almost the tangent in the episode, but it seems like you should have put more of the focus on the peace conference than the prison.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not really sure. Not really sure.
Well, again, we have three very disparate plots that are tied together, and we're just not figuring out exactly how they're going to intertwine by the end.
Yeah, so the only connecting string is the Master throughout all of them. So, but for some side characters, we did get Chin Lee. I do like her. She's an interesting character. And, hey, they actually sprang for a Chinese actor, so...
Several of them, too, because... what was his name? Pu Fing or... Fu Ping. Fu Fing, yeah.
Fu Teng,
he's
actually,
not Fu Fing.
I think. Yeah. Something like that, yeah. I think I wrote it down. I can't find it in here.
It's Fu Ping.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, we're definitely past the days of Marco Polo, which, to their credit, they were early on. They were, you know, a small little show, so maybe they didn't have the budget or the resources to find actual, you know, actual ethnic actors, but now they can, and they did, which, good for them.
Well, again, it's also a change in the society, because between the early 60s and the late 60s, early 70s, we were becoming more aware that, you know, there needs to be representation. I mean, that was one of the things that Gene Roddenberry did with Star Trek, is he wanted to have an Asian actor, and he wanted to have an African-American actress, and, you know, he had Spock, who was, you know, the ultimate outsider, but also later brought in Chekhov, the Russian. So I think that is kind of a thing that happened very much in all of the media of that time, in television, movies, and all that sort of thing, where we begin to see, hey, wait a minute, we really should not cast a white actor as Genghis Khan when we can probably go out and find, and again, not specifically stereotyping anybody, but saying, if we're going to have an Asian character, let's find an Asian actor to play it.
Yeah, so, and then not only did they spring for Chinese actors, they also sprang for different languages, which was very impressive. Yeah. So that was good. Let's see.
And kudos to Pertwee for actually being able to. I'm sure he learned that simply by rote. That's the way most people do it in these scenes. When I did Children of the Lesser God, I literally had to learn American Sign Language in 6 weeks, and I didn't know what I was saying, but the instructor taught me how to make all of the signs, and I just mimicked exactly what he said to do. And we actually had some people in the audience who read it and came up afterwards and said, "So do you really know American Sign Language?" And I went, "No, I'm an actor. I learned what they taught me."
Yeah. So, and I do like not only that. I don't remember what the first language was with the ambassador.
Yeah. Now. That I know it sounded like Hokkaido, but that's Japanese. So there was it must be another dialect of Chinese, and I was not familiar. Cantonese and Mandarin, I think, are the two most spoken. The largest number of people speak those two dialects in China today.
Yeah. So, but of course, speaking those different languages and dialects does leave out the poor brigadier, who doesn't know any of that. So. Which, I mean, I guess it does kind of make sense, because he's, primarily based in London, and everything happens in London. He never has to really leave London. But at the same time, when you are a brigadier in the United Nations, intelligence task force, it's like, you think he would spring for a little bit more for...
Well, I would suspect that he probably knows at least another language, whether it's French or Spanish or German or something like that. Yeah. But no, in the 70s, very few people would have been expected to know Chinese.
Yeah,
because China still was very much a closed-off society at this point. Aside from the fact that Mandarin Chinese is literally the most difficult language on the planet, next to English, which is also very difficult to learn, especially for adults.
Yeah, well, and I mean, English, we have our own problems, between people that speak English. some people say aluminum, and some people...
Don't go there. We're not doing...
Right. Fine.
We'll get down that rabbit hole and never come back up.
See, I don't know which is worse. Comments on pronunciations, or comments telling us that we shouldn't question the goo. I don't know which comment is more frustrating.
Again, I think what is more germane, as it were, to this conversation is dialect. Because, for example, you are aware that there are very different dialects in the United States.
Yeah.
And that people from Birmingham, Alabama would have a hard time understanding somebody from Boston. And that California doesn't have a specific accent or dialect, but there are some places in California that if you were from Minnesota, for example, you might have a difficult time. And it's the same thing, we've joked about how people from London wouldn't necessarily be able to understand people from Glasgow or from Manchester or Liverpool.
Yeah.
Just because of the accent, the dialect there. So it isn't so much a difference in the pronunciation of specific words, but just the dialect overall.
Yeah, so... yeah. Let's see here. We had the whole thing with the illusions, the illusion deaths, which was interesting. So first one was many rats, which did end up, creating these claw marks. The professor, who I swear, before he died, I was like, oh man, he's going to be the new Professor Stallman. He's going to be crazy and try to do this. I was like, nope. He's out.
He's off.
We may be kind of done with crazy professors so long as we have the master. Like, what do we need a crazy professor for? We already have him.
Yeah.
So he's already insane.
Well, maybe this is the new producer's way or the writer's way of saying, we're going to try to break out of that mold and we're going to do something else.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for it. So I'm definitely enjoying the Master as a reoccurring villain.
Yeah.
And then the one professor though drowned. The doctor was fire, and I would be curious if he is specifically referencing, because he said that it was a world that was destroyed by fire, and you could say, well, does he mean a planet or does he just mean like a civilization? Because I immediately thought of Rome burning down, although he didn't seem too bothered by that at the time. He was almost giddy that he was accidentally the one who burned down Rome. But it could also be a reference to the Daleks and Skaro burning down. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, but they hinted at that right there at the end of episode 3, because you heard the Dalek voice saying, exterminate, exterminate.
Yeah, so it could have been that. Let's see here. We were right that the Master was Emil Keller, which I do like when he... just these different... personas that he creates. This one definitely in a better name than General Masters that he used last episode. But I like how he does sort of just fit himself into these different places and sort of blends in.
And he was also the telephone repair guy.
Yeah,
which was kind of interesting. That he he can disguise himself. Where does he get these masks? Does he make them himself? Something left over from the old Auton machines that were creating the Autons. So
yeah, perhaps. I mean, the definite Mission Impossible masks. I suppose. See, the thing is, he almost has a fully functioning TARDIS. I guess we don't know like how much the Doctor has in his TARDIS. It's just that he can't move it anywhere. The Master can't either. Well, he can't dematerialize it. What I do kind of wonder is, when he landed at the circus, it turned into a car. Could he then drive that car?
I would assume he could, because that's how he disappeared. And the other thing is, although he can't dematerialize it, can it still become a chameleon? So, because you go out to a prison in a circus truck, in a horse truck, and they're going to go, what are you doing here?
Yeah, if he could like change it to a specific, and we've seen before that you can specifically alter a TARDIS's appearance to be something else, because the first Doctor did that with the Monk's TARDIS, where he cycled through like 8 different outer shells until eventually he found the police box, and he was in ancient Egypt at the time. Yeah. So, maybe, I mean, because if he still has pretty much everything else in his TARDIS, I mean, that's still pretty dangerous. That's a lot of stuff at his disposal. Yeah. So, let's see. We had the whole thing of the riots, which was interesting, but again, it's like, I'm not really sure what he's doing at this
where are we
prison.
Going with the riot? Where are we going with the prisoners?
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think, like, how this could work if you took out the prison, and because if you take out the prison and you just have the peace conference, well, that's still a sizable amount of plot that you can, a lot of content you can get from that. This entire giant peace conference with, thousands of different delegates from around the world, and you throw in the Master and the Doctor and this crazy machine and murders and illusions and dragons and stuff. It could all still work. So I'm curious why they included the prison. Not that it's bad or anything. I'm just curious.
We haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. So, and let's see. We have the whole thing of the dragon that was, I guess, the American ambassador's greatest fear was a dragon.
Except that when the Doctor and the Brigadier and everybody else came in, they saw it too.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just her trying to intimidate the senator by turning into this Chinese dragon.
Yeah, and because we also had the original Chinese delegate who died and we presume was murdered by Qin Li, but they didn't really say how he died, so it could have just been that's like that's her go-to, basically, is turning into this giant puppeteered dragon thing and killing these delegates, whereas in the prison it's more personal fears and stuff. So could be. Let's see what else. I do like any meeting we get between the Doctor and the Master. Like, it's definitely, a James Bond and a Bond villain, or Sherlock and Moriarty. Just seeing the two of them just talking is very, very interesting. So I like that. And yeah, the last thing I wrote down was the missile that he's gonna go steal the missile from Benton and Yates and then try to detonate it. Man, poor Benton. He's kind of getting sidelined in this new season. It's not like he did a lot in season 7, but it was kind of, he was the second in command for the Brigadier. So now he's being a bit more sidelined. Like in this episode, he nearly faints, and then now he's being replaced by Yates. It's like, oh man. This poor guy. Like, I'm curious, like, what the process was, too. Like, why create a character like Yates when you do already have Benton? Like, why wouldn't you just... If you're going to have a character like that, why wouldn't you just use Benton?
It may have been the accidental function that they created him as a sergeant, who is a non-commissioned officer. And theoretically, an NCO would not be a second-in-command. Any second-in-command would have to be a commissioned officer, which would be lieutenant, captain, or up. If the brigadier is there, that means you got to go through lieutenant, captain, major, and colonel. And if he's only a sergeant, that would theoretically not fit into the military structure.
Yeah, so could it be they just couldn't give him just that big boost of promotion to get him up there?
Getting from a non-commissioned officer to an officer is literally, I'm not going to say impossible, but it's one of those things that it is so rare that it's usually like a battlefield promotion.
Yeah.
But again, it has happened in the past. I don't know if it's done, if it's been done in the British Army, but it has happened in the American Army, especially during the American Civil War. That happened quite a bit.
So essentially, they created Benton, made him a sergeant, realized they have a military problem, so they had to hire a completely other guy to fill in this sort of role.
Yeah.
Not that Yates does anything that Benton wasn't already doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a very specific writing problem that we can't realistically just promote him. So we got to hire a new guy, pay him a salary.
Written themselves into a corner.
Yeah, accidentally. So. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, next time we will finish up the next 3 parts of The Mind of Evil. Was this nice? A nice shorter episode, one less episode to watch. We weren't talking. I'm pretty sure that for Terror of the Autons, we still would have had another hour. Like that. I think the total edited video was around an hour and a half, maybe close to an hour and 40 minutes. Wow. So, yeah, 4 episodes, and then we talked, and then we did the Twitter Q&A, and then we did Mummy on the Orient Express. So, again, go watch that if you haven't already. So, maybe we'll put that in the end cards. Let's see if we did put that in the end cards. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from Some of Our Films, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our classic Doctor Who reactions, there is a playlist on screen, and probably, maybe, is that link to Mummy on the Orient Express if you haven't seen that. That's way easier to put in. So, also there's a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.